Hello, you are watching an interesting video on stories of 15 entrepreneurs can give you motivation to take risks and confidence. Passion, motivation, the desire to take risks and confidence. These words define an entrepreneur. Perhaps these words makes you envision Steve Jobs and his black turtleneck. Maybe you see the iPhone as one of the most important ideas of all time. Or maybe when you think about an individual who brought a unique idea to the world and worked tirelessly until it changed life as we know it, you picture Thomas Edison. Both Jobs and Edison are deserving of the influential entrepreneurial title, because both men impacted the world with new ways to communicate. But when I ask you to think of some of the most influential entrepreneurs in the last 100 years or so, would you have trouble listing more than 2? Read on to learn about 15 of the most influential entrepreneurs. Henry Ford. Ford was born into a family of farmers, but he was always curious as to how things worked. After receiving a timepiece from his father as a teenager, Ford took the thing apart just to see if he could put it back together. Though dyslexic, Ford knew he had a passion about knowing how things worked, and he was determined to do something about it. In 1891, Ford met with Thomas Edison, who was very intrigued by his automobile ideas, who allowed him to use his warehouses to manufacture 2 vehicles. When he could, Ford built his own company so he could build the cars how he wanted to. Ford went on to build the Cadillac Automobile Company, but he had terrible financial setbacks along the way. He believed in himself and didn't let financial failures slow him down. Sales for the Ford Group are now $190 billion. Oprah Winfrey. Winfrey may be a household name because of her show in her magazines, but she's accomplished so much more. After facing a tragic childhood and being very vocal about things she had experienced, Winfrey would gain fame in 1983 when she landed her own talk show. While she was happy with the fame and financial success she was experiencing, she still had entrepreneurial skills. In 1988, she founded Harpo Studios. This business now has over 250 employees and is growing every year. Her personal wealth sits at a comfortable $2.7 billion. Larry Page. At just 37 years old, Page has a net worth of $15 billion. He's the co-founder of Google. His parents were both computer science professors at the University of Michigan. He came from a wealthy family, so he was able to attend the best schools in order to complete his degree in computer engineering sciences. He also earned a master's in computer science from Stanford before meeting Sergey Brin in 1995. Brin was also a Stanford student, and the two became friends. In 1996, they went into business together and started Google Incorporated. Through networking, they were able to get financial backing from Andy Bechtolsheim, one of the co-founders of Sun Microsystems. They would go on to be offered much more from tons of investors. Richard Branson. Branson is a well-known British industrialist, and you've probably seen him on commercials for the Virgin Group's Virgin Atlantic Airways. Virgin Group spans across 360 different companies including Virgin Records, Virgin Galactic and even some charities. Branson was always of an entrepreneurial mind, as he started his first business venture in 1966 with Student magazine. The next year, he opened his first charity, the Student Advisory Center. He is heavily involved with all aspects of his company, which helps make him such a success, and part of why he's on this list. He didn't stop as soon as he was successful, he continued to work hard because he cares about the work he's doing. Arianna Huffington. Huffington was born in Athens, Greece in 1950 and is now one of the most professional and successful females within the blogging industry. Along with blogging, Huffington also wrote a biography on Maria Callas in 1981, and Picasso in 1989. She gained more attention in the early 90s when she supported her ex-husband's unsuccessful bid for the Senate. Always driven, she later founded the Huffington Post. This has spanned and grown, and you may also recognize HuffPost Chicago, HuffPost New York, HuffPost Denver, and HuffPost Los Angeles. In 2010, she won the Webby Award for The People's Voice, and she was even named the second-place winner in Time magazine's Best 25 Blogs of 2009. Charles Kemmons Wilson. Wilson is one of the most famous entrepreneurs in the hotelier business. Supposedly, he came up with the idea for his business after a road trip helped him see the need for quality hotels. He and his business partner created Holiday Inn of America. It franchised in 1957 and grew dramatically. In fact, by 1958, Wilson and Johnson had managed to create 50 different Holiday Inns all over the country. In just 5 years, there were 500. And just after a decade, that already impressive number would double to 1,000. Wilson was a true entrepreneur as he brought innovative ideas to the market which helped leverage the way things worked as well as adding financial pressure to traditional hotels and bigger competitors. Anita Roddick. Roddick created the Body Shop in 1976 with only 15 products and loads of compassion. She had sourced the products from all around the world and was determined to give shoppers in the UK access to greener products. She was so motivated and passionate about what she was doing, she was able to open store after store. As of 2003, she had built an empire of 1,980 stores serving more than 75 million customers in 50 countries. She sold her company to L'Oreal and made $1.03 billion on it. Jeff Bezos. Born in 1964, Bezos is the founder, chief executive officer and chairman of the board for Amazon.com. Bezos started as an Exxon engineer, but he had always been interested in science. He received an honorary doctorate in science and technology from Carnegie Mellon University in 2008 and graduated from Princeton. In 1994, after a trip from New York to Seattle, Bezos came up with the idea for Amazon. He was able to get back in and now Amazon is one of the most successful e-commerce sites in the world with a revenue of about $25 billion. George Eastman. You've probably heard of Kodak, but you probably haven't heard of Eastman, even though he was the man who made it all happen. He founded the company in 1884, but he was more interested in creating than running the business. He hired Henry Strong as the president and in 1885, Eastman invented the roll film which was used for over 100 years. Penny Streeter. Streeter was born in Zimbabwe in 1957, but she moved to the UK in the late 80s. After launching a recruitment business, she was left broke and homeless due to its failure. To add to her troubles, she was faced with a divorce at the same time. 6 years later, she decided she had nothing more to lose and started a recruitment business once more. This time, she created Ambition 24 Hours and is sought to fill roles in nursing, social work, teaching, lecturing, and caregiving. In 2004, the company expanded into South Africa and in 2006, she made her first noticeable acquisition, the Nursing Services of South Africa. This was the largest staffing agency for nursing personnel. Streeter went from being broke to having a net worth of $117.80 billion. Linda Bennett. Bennett truly worked her way from the bottom. Passionate about the clothing industry, she founded the luxury women's wear brand LK Bennett in the UK in 1990. She opened an accessories shop in Wimbledon with a small savings account and a bank loan. She managed to become an icon, creating shoes for the Duchess of Cornwall which she wore to marry Prince Charles. In 2004, she tried to sell the business, but didn't, as the asking price wasn't met. 4 years later she sold to a private equity firm called Phoenix Equity Partners and Sirius Equity for around $110 million. Madam C.J. Walker. Walker died over 90 years ago, but she made an empire. Born Sarah Breedlove, Walker is known for being America's first African-American entrepreneur, as well as one of the wealthiest of her time. Many women in the 18 to 1900s suffered from hair loss, thought to be due to a lack of plumbing and electricity which prevented bathing regularly. Walker recognized it was a problem and decided to make some homemade remedies. They worked so well that she invested and created a business. The products were a huge success and stores across the country were selling her products. In 1908, she opened a college to train hairdressers, and in 1910 she started a factory. She would later become a teacher and lecturer, speaking to female entrepreneurs to help them find their own success. Walt Disney. After being hired by the Kansas City Film Ad Company, Disney learned how to make animations from cutouts. He went on to have many successes and failures, but he continued to work on his animation knowledge. In 1932, he won an Academy Award for his efforts in animation. He is of course responsible for Disneyland and Disney World, which are currently worth about $35 million. Hans Christian Andersen. Andersen grew up poor, but a fortune teller told him he would grow up to be famous. He tried and failed to become an actor and a singer, but the director of the Royal Danish Theatre took him under his wing and paid for his education. He was bullied at school and began publishing his writings after leaving. His fairy tales became famous and Disney has adapted most of them. Michael Newton. Newton started a CCTV system in 1982 that monitored how long a person was at a bar. He introduced a line of multi-channel systems that were able to view a broad range of areas all at once in various locations. Now using this system, over 7 million images are recorded every second. In 1994, he made the move into the commercial airline industry and is now the CEO of the Ad Aviation Company. Thank you and keep watching more informative videos.